No, you can.
We end the night with one of the oldest examples of a classical ghost story. Pliny, was it Pliny or Pliny?
Plenty,
Pliny?
because he's skinny.
Yeah, that's right. Pliny the Younger's tale of the macabre is as nameless as it is timeless. Reproduced again and again from its original Latin, it has stood the test of time, and its essence can be felt and read in ghost stories across the globe and throughout modern literature. There was formerly at Athens a large and handsome house, which nonetheless had acquired a reputation of being badly haunted. The folk told of how the dead at night, horrid noises were heard, the clanking of chairs which grew louder and louder until there suddenly appeared the hideous phantom of an old, old man, who seemed the very picture of abject filth and misery. His beard was long and matted, his white hairs dishevelled unkempt. His thin legs were loaded with a weight of galled fetters that he dragged wearily along with a painful moaning. His wrists were shackled by long cruel links, whilst ever and anon he raised his arms and shook his jaws amid in a kind of impotent fury. Some few mocking skeptics, who once were bold enough to watch all night in the house, had been well nigh scared from their senses at a sight of the apparition, and, what was worse, disease and even death itself proved the fate of those who after dark had ventured within these accursed walls. The place was shunned. A placard "To Let" was posted, but year succeeded year, and the house fell to almost ruin and decay. It so happened that the philosopher Athenodorus, whilst on a visit to Athens, passed by the deserted, overgrown garden, and seeing the bill, inquired the rent of the house, which was just as he was seeking. Being not a little surprised at the low figure asked, he put more questions, and then there came out the whole story. Nonetheless, he signed the lease and ordered that no room should be furnished for him with a bed, chairs, and table. At night he took his writings, tablet, style, books, and a good lamp, and set himself, as his wont, to study in the quiet hours. He had determined to concentrate upon some difficult problems, if he sat idle and expected to his imagination should play tricks, and he might see what was in reality not there. He was soon absorbed in philosophical calculations, but presently the noise of a rattling chain, at first distant, then growing nearer, broke on his ear. However, Athenodorus, being particularly occupied with his notes, was too intent to interrupt his writing until, as the clanking became more and more continuous, he looked up. And there before him stood the phantom, exactly as had been described. The ghastly figure seemed to beckon with its finger, but the philosopher signed with his hand that he was busy, and again bent to his writing. The chains were shaken angrily and with persistence, upon which Athenodorus quickly arose from his seat, and taking the lamp, motioned the spectre to lead before. With low groans, the figure passed heavily through the spacious corridors and empty rooms until they came out into the garden, when it led the philosopher to a distant shrubbery, and, with a deep sigh, mingled with the night. Athenodorus, having marked the spot with stones and a broken bough, returned to the house, where he slept soundly until morning. Then he repaired to the nearest magistrates, related what he had seen, and advised that the spot where the ghost disappeared should be investigated. This was done, and in doing, they found a few feet below the surface a human skeleton, curious, enchained, and fettered in the gyves of a pattern many centuries old, now rusty and eroded so that they fell asunder in flakes of disquieting verdigris. The mouldering bones were collected with reverent care and given a decent and seemly burial. The house was purged and cleansed with ritual lusterations, and never afterward was it troubled by a spectre or ill luck. You can see how it influenced like all the other ghost stories after it. And that's it.
That's quick.
That was quicker than I expected.
I feel like there's an elephant in the room.
You feel like there's an elephant in the room?
Can we turn the
Yeah, we can turn the elephant off. That's the cool